Hello everyone, welcome to next video of SQL Server series. Today we are going to see about what is unique constraint and what is identity constraint. In our previous videos we have learned about what is primary key and how we can use it in SQL. What is the use of a primary key? We have seen how we can use a primary key to uniquely identify a particular row in a table. So we can also use the unique constraint to perform the same operation by assigning unique constraint to your column. It can only allow only the unique values inside your column. It does not allow any duplicates to be entered inside the column. You can use this to uniquely identify your rows. Let's say for example, if you are a student, you will be assigned with a roll number or a register number in your college. Let's say that is a unique number which is permanently registered for you. No other people will have a duplicate number as your number. So in such cases you can enforce the unique constraint to your columns. And what about, and talking about the identity column, it is used to increment the id columns automatically. We don't need to supply any separate numbers to our columns. So let us see how to use the unique constraint and identity constraint in our tables. Let's get into the SSMS. So now I am inside my SSMS. I have connected to the server. Let's expand the database. Let's create a new query. You can simply click the Control N. So let us create a fresh table. Create table, table student, id integer, name varchar 255, and the age column which is again an integer. So let's say for example I am going to specify the id as a unique column. You can just give the unique constraint after your data type specification. Let's run this statement. Just press Ctrl E or F5 to execute the statement. So the table has got created. Let's expand the database and tables. You can find the table student, and when you expand the table, and you can see the unique key constraint inside your table. So now let's try to insert some records. Set into let's say 1 and comma for each 20. Now let's just execute this statement. Let's select some table students. Whenever you execute a single query. You just need to select and execute that. So now you can see there is a record inserted into the table. So now I am going to insert another record with the same ID value, which shows there is a violation of unique key constraint. So by this way you can only allow the unique values inside your column, and you can restrict then duplicate values getting inserted into your columns. So we have seen like the primary key which did the same thing. It also uniquely identify the rows in the table. So what is the difference between the primary key and the unique constraint? So the table can only contains only one primary key, but you can have multiple unique keys inside your table. Let's say for example, if I have a Aadhaar number column, let's say for example Aadhaar number will not be duplicated. So if you need to specify the Aadhaar column, you can also use the unique constraint there. So the table can contains multiple unique columns, but there must be only one primary key. So that is a primary difference between the primary key and also the unique key, but both the two did the same thing. Now let's insert another row. Let us create another column with the same unique constraint using the alter table student. Add, you need to specify the column name, Aadhaar ID, and it is an integer. Let's say it for begin, and it is unique. Let's select this and execute. An error like creating an unique index terminated because of the duplicate key value found at the object student. Okay, now let's see that duplicate key value is a null. Let's select this table. You have no null values, but when you try to insert a column in this table, basically you didn't supply the value for these two rows, so automatically a null get inserted into the column. So the unique constraint is a unique thing. So supplying two null values to that constraint must not allow the value. So there is another difference between the primary key and unique constraint. Let's say for example, in our last video we have seen like we cannot insert a null value inside the column which is a primary key, but you can supply a null value for a unique column. It will accept the null value, but it will accept only one null values. Now let me try to execute this another time. It shows an error, unique key constraint. So unique key can allows a null value, but it can allows only one time. Now let us truncate the table. So now the table got truncated, so there is no records inside this table now. So at this moment we can easily add the column inside the table. Now my column has been added to my table. Let's see, there is an author ID. So you can have multiple unique key columns in your table. Let us insert a row and see. Let's say for author number we can give like something, one row got affected, and when I try to insert another row, let me change the ID, but now it shows the unique constraint error because we are supplying the same other ID for the another student. Let's change this, and when I execute this, now the row got affected. So basically you can have a multiple unique constraint in your table columns, and the unique performs the same operations that which must not allows the null duplicate values inside your columns. It can allows a null value but only one time. So this is the primary difference between the primary key and a unique constraint. So you have created a column and specified the unique constraint for this. What if you need to specify for an existing value? Let's say for example, as of now we have a column age. I need a unique constraint for this age column. That age must not have to be an unique, but let's say for example you can use alter table, the table name, and add constraint and the constraint name. Let's say for example unique and then table name underscore which column age, and you can specify the unique constraint unique of age to apply to the age column. Let's execute this. So it shows that there is a duplicate of the age value in our table. Let's select this and see there is a duplicate, so it will not allow you to execute this statement and it is terminated. Let's again truncate the table. By truncating the table, all the rows will be deleted at once. Now let us go ahead and create the unique constraint for the each column. Let us execute this and let us execute another value by specifying another other number. Now by executing this, it shows error because we are supplying the same age for this column. So we have also add a unique constraint for the column which is existing in your table. You can use the drop command, drop constraint, the constraint name, so it's got deleted. Now let's see, you have constraints. you have two unique constraints. You can also delete it from here. Okay, so it's got dropped. Now let's so I hope the unique constraint has been cleared for you. Let's drop this table and let us see what is an identity. So now let's use this same table to specify the identity column. You need to specify from where it need to be started and what number it had to be incremented. Let us also create a table using the designer with the identity column. Here we can give id, and for data type it is an integer. Select integer and it must not allow null values. And for the next column I need name, it need to be a varchar. And which must not allow a null value. For this id column I need to specify the identity value. So let's expand this, where you can find the identity specification. In this identity specification you can specify yes, can give yes, and it also asks for you at which id it has to be get started. You can specify any numbers that you need to be get started from and what number it has to be incremented. You can give two, then it will start from 1 and then insert 3 and then 5, like that. So like this you need to specify the identity and you can save this as a table. So as of now we can close this without saving. We can use this identity using the query. So I have created the table now. Let's now insert a value into this table, insert into students values. So in our last videos we have seen like you need to specify the column names which you are going to specify the values for. But if it is an identity column, without specifying the identity you can just give the name and age column, it will accepts because the id gets generated automatically by the identity column. So now let's insert the name and the age. So let us execute this. One row got affected. You can select from the table. So it has generated id 1 and I need to insert another row. Another row got affected. so it has incremented the id with 1. So you can use the identity to increment the IDs automatically. Let's insert another record. So there are 3 records in our student table. Now I need to delete the second member from the student table. Let me use the delete command. Delete from students where id equal to, I don't need the id2. Let me delete this. So I have deleted the id2. Let me execute this. I have id1 and id3. When I try to insert another row, it has executed. It got supplied with the value 4. So there is id1 and id4 and id3. I don't want like this. I want the id2 need to be filled in this gap. So how can I able to do this? So let us try to pass the value id and name and age, because we are going to specify all the 3 values. So I need the name in id2. When I try to execute this statement, it shows an error like cannot insert explicit value for identity column, as the identity is specified. So when you try to pass the id value explicitly, it will not allow you to pass that. It shows when it is identity insert is set to turned off. Identity insert is turned off basically. So when you want to pass the id column explicitly, you need to turn on the identity insert. How we can turn on the identity insert? Let's use the command set identity insert for the table as on. So when I try to execute this, command has executed successfully. When I try to execute this now, it shows 1 row affected. Let's see this. So I got 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now when I try to pass the value without specifying the id column, let me insert some value without specifying id column. Which we done earlier. Now it shows an error that identity insert is set on. So as identity insert is set to on, you need to pass the id value explicitly. It will not generate the id automatically because identity is set to off, because the identity insert is on. When you want to again enable the identity, you just need to turn off the identity insert. You can use the same command by turning off the identity insert. So now when I try to execute this statement, it will allows to insert the query, and let me try to execute the select statement. It shows the student has affected in my table. So by specifying the identity, you can use it to automatically generate the ID values for your table. From the table, without specifying any IDs, let me going to delete all the students from the ID. So now let me select the students. There is no records in my table. Let me try to insert a record. One row got affected. So now when I try to select the table, it shows the ID has been affected from 2. Why it is not getting started with the ID 1? Let's insert another value. One row got affected. Can see it is 3. The table has been starting from 2, 3, and again if I delete all the records and try to insert a new record, it gets starting from the 4. So what if I need to reset the values to the identity column? You can use the command to reset the identity column and set the value back to generate from ID number 1. You can use the dbcc command, dbcc check ident of which table, and you need to use reseed, and from which number you need to reseed. If you want to getting the ID started from 1, you need to specify 0. Now you can execute this statement. It shows dbcc execution completed, print error message, contact your administrator. Okay, now let me select this. There is no records. Let's delete and update. So when I try to insert this now and select this, the ID is starting from 1. Let me execute another value. Now the ID is starting 1, 2, 3 and so on. So to reset the identity count, you can reseed the starting value from specific number by using the dbcc command, and by using the truncate you can avoid these problems. While you use the truncate statement, it will automatically truncate all the values from the table, and it will automatically resets the identity value to the default one. So now I have 2 members. So if I use the delete command, it will generate the next value from the 3. But when I use the truncate statement, so command got executed successfully. There is no records in my table. Let me try to insert the first value. One row got affected. Let's select and see this. It is starting from 1 and execute this. Now it is in the correct order. So you can use the truncate statement to drop all the record at once, and it can also automatically resets the identity values to the default value which you have specified. So we have seen how you can use a unique constraint in your table in SQL, and also the identity constraint and how you can use this in SQL. You can also see what is the last identity number that got affected by using the scope identity constraint. So you can use this and select this and see what is the last ID that it has generated using the identity column. So today we have learned about what is a unique constraint and what is an identity constraint, and we have used how it is helpful in our tables in SQL Server. I hope you have understand the concepts well. I have provided the GitHub link where you can find the solution for today's class and also the exercise for today's classes. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.